All right, Jajabor, more great questions. Space, time, matter, energy, light. Um, all the great categories of physics, huh? Light's interesting. Light upon light, nur on nur. It's supposed to be a law in the universe that two things cannot occupy the same space. But I can take two flashlights and I can face the light towards each other, and it doesn't cancel out. I mean, and of course we could say, well, maybe the light is separated, all the light is separated from each other, and so there's really no collision going on because there's so much space between the lights. But then, what if I go like that? Wouldn't I must necessarily have caused a collision, and yet nothing cancels out. It's a complete mystery. We create these models for our minds, and we think we understand things because we become transfixed by our models, like gravity and how that works. And then we think we figured something out, but the whole thing's a mystery. I mean, look at light. I mean, we have two dual models for that. We have a wave model and a particle model, and we say, well, sometimes it behaves like a wave, and sometimes it behaves like a particle, and sometimes maybe it's both, maybe it's not. Really, it's something else. We don't understand it at all. I do think, though, that they've sort of established that all energy is light. And by Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared, right, matter is energy. So all you really have, I think, is energy, which is light. Matter would be more sort of like a bound, what's binding it, I don't know, but a bound light. But in any event, all you have is energy, space, and time. I mean, leaving the human factor, like mind, out of the equation, because that's a different kind of light, huh? So there we are. It's a great question you asked about if something can arise from nothing. Why didn't it happen before? That's a beautiful question. I mean, most people don't go beyond that. They get frozen up on, either something can or can't come from nothing. But then the question, well, then why didn't it happen before? If it happened at any moment, there was an infinite amount of space. I mean, infinite amount of time before it. That's just as long an amount of time as if it had happened here, because it's infinity. It's a linear infinity, if time is linear. So yeah, it would have had to have happened before. It would have had to have already happened, which would mean that either it's always happening, or we've stumbled across an absurdity, and I think we've kind of stumbled across an absurdity. I can bounce this kind of to the logical or more quasi-logical level and sort of say, in a way, nothingness and being, or somethingness, existence, let's say. Nothingness and existence must arise together because they are logical opposites. Of course, that's just being processed through my mind. But then, if I'm saying that nothingness and existence must arise together as polar opposites, they don't make sense if there's just one. If there's nothingness and no something, then how can it really be nothingness? I'll have to think about that. I'm not sure about that. But so if they must arise together, why then would somethingness take time to occur? Wouldn't they occur simultaneously? And here I think we and similar to your previous video, Atheism in the Body, here's where I keep coming back to the essential problem is time. Time may very well be an illusion. If we look at the Big Bang Theory, they can take the distances and speeds of all the stars and calculate how fast the universe is expanding. Oh, by the way, curiously, with Einstein's equation, time is relative. Time and space are a fabric. You probably know this. I'm sure you do. And the one constant when you're in different time frameworks, different frameworks, the one constant is the speed of light. Not light, but the speed of light. But that, of course, is tied to light. But in any event, where was I? Okay, so if we run the film backwards to the moment of the appearance of something, the expression of the universe into existence. The odd thing is, space and time as a continuum, as a tied fabric of some kind, for lack of a better word, they occur simultaneously too. There's no space without time, no time without space. I guess I don't see why there can't be. Usually we assume there are, but if they are really tied together, as Einstein's theory suggests, then the problem is time loses its meaning as you get closer and closer to the moment. Let's look at it, moment as an event rather than a moment in time. But to the event of the Big Bang, time ceases to exist. So there is no before the Big Bang. So what does that mean? And this is more of the kind of, you'd mentioned nothingness. In a way, time becomes irrelevant because it, in a sense, ceases to exist. Or maybe I should say the question becomes meaningless when we say what happened before the Big Bang. Now, that's never satisfied me. I mean, what started me being fascinated with mathematics was when the instructor told me that you could you could take a number, divide by all the numbers, but you could not divide by zero. And that's what started me, probing mathematics as to how can that be, what does that mean, and I asked him, well, what does that mean, why not? And he said, well, it's meaningless. And I said, well, what does that mean? What does meaningless mean? Well, you can't just say it's meaningless. It seems like a dodge to me, and I still haven't figured it out, of course. So anyway, there's the difficulty now. So I tend to think, however, that if we imagine ourselves as limited consciousnesses going through whatever the greater reality is, if this reality is a plenum, a fullness, and our consciousness is really just experiencing a partial path through reality, and time as being the result of simply the journey, I've expressed that poorly, but almost like we're a cross-section of reality, and somehow in this process of division, or this what possibly could be illusion, we get the illusion of time, that time doesn't really exist. We're just seeing part of the total reality at any one particular time. Well, I'm back to the concept time. See, this is what's frustrating with me, is I get caught, even when I try to imagine nothingness, I see space, and I don't think space is nothingness. Space is, allows for lots of relationships to exist. You can have up, down, things can exist in spatial relationships, so how can space be nothing? Space is something, and maybe they'll find out someday that space is perhaps concentrated or attenuated matter. I don't know. Anyway, off of that. Sorry, man. I'm not thinking clearly at this point. I threw in too many concepts at once, and now I'm kind of lost in the concept soup. What am I trying to say about this? That somehow we are seeing just in our entire lives, which we experience temporally as what we perceive to be a forward movement in time, that this could really just be a cross-section of a greater whole. I could also think if reality is a sphere, and we are, you say, here, and here's the sphere of reality, it is just turning, and we're seeing a different side of a unified sphere at any one time. And the sphere as a whole exists outside of time, but to our little narrow perception, which is seeing things in partial terms at any one moment, so I'm back caught in that loop again, but we think that something is changing, and there's really an unchanging thing. We're just seeing a different side of it at each time, just as if we were watching the Earth turn, and we thought that we picked one point on the Earth, and we didn't realize the Earth was turning, we just thought it was one thing changing all the time, So we would say, wow, that thing turned to water, and wow, that thing changed into land again, and now it's changed into water again, and now, gee, that thing changes back and forth between water and land all the time. When actually what's happened is the Earth has rotated, and we've just been looking through a narrow little hole, thinking that we're seeing one thing go through lots of changes, but we haven't seen anything changed. All we've seen is a different piece of the sphere of the Earth at a different time. So I'm out of time now, man. I have so much more to say, but I'm coming up on 10 minutes. Anyway, some food for thought. Maybe time's an illusion. Maybe it's the constrictedness of our consciousness that creates the illusion of time. Of course, I'm also aware that things can travel very fast down the road and run me over. So I don't know what's an illusion or what's not. Take care, man. Great video.